once you've got the data gathered from all these different sources, you then want the ability to be able to work with that data, to utilize that data. Now, I realize that everything is small and it's hard to see, but in the upper left here under schema discovery, this is what process mining typically does. It takes all of the data coming in from all these sources and merges it together to show you the flow of information. And we see a couple examples switching back and forth here. This is extremely useful to be able to see what is happening within your environment, but it also is somewhat limiting because this works great when you've got a relatively simple process. What happens when your process gets much more complicated with many more steps and many more branching points? Well, you need additional analytical tools beyond what process mining typically provides. One example of that would be path analysis, where we're able to show for each specific path that is taken through the process, what are the various paths that are taken, and then at the top, you can't really see it, but there's metrics that annotate these, so you get the ability to see things such as how long on average does it take when I do it one way versus when I do it a different way, so that you're able to better understand the implications of how the outcomes you get differ based on which path, which execution of the process you actually use. But these first two are still tied to the graphical nature of the process. And as processes get more complex, then process intelligence helps out with other types of tools. So for instance, when it talks about temporal and interval analysis, you may want to pick any two steps of interest to you, and they may happen in different systems of record, but pick any two steps of interest and be able to see what is a graphic representation of how long this typically takes over time. So we can see that usually it's done very quickly, but occasionally it takes much longer than that. And you also want to be able to drill into that, to be able to break it down by operator or department or region, so that you can start to get at the root causes of what is causing the delays within the system. And we can even take it a step further. Rather than you having to pick what are the transitions you want to examine, the system can go through the entire process and look for what are the steps going from one step to another that take the longest, that cost the most. And for all of these, you can have the system automatically find them and point them out to you to, again, help find the root cause of why your systems might not be behaving the way you think they would. And there are additional types of analytics here. We'll talk more about behaviors in a moment, but you've got the ability to specify process behaviors, which would allow you to then focus in on just the cases behaving one way versus another. So you heard before about behavior-based, being able to look at analytics based on behavior. Well, because we have the ability as process intelligence to understand an end-to-end process and all these behaviors, we can start to give you analytics that show you how the way you do the process affects the outcomes. You can also look at a timeline, which would be the sequence of all the steps in each case, and then we can bring up any individual case and see all of the steps and what the values were, what the attribute values were, and how long things are taking. Again, you can't get these in a distributed process without some kind of a control plane that looks over all of this. And finally, you want the ability to create custom metrics and custom dashboards so the metrics you care about can be conveniently put together and presented to those who need to see them.